Jesus Christ. That's Jason Bourne.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. It's a jacked up review show. Jacked up review show.
Welcome all. We have very exclusive guests here tonight, Kelsey and Maddie from the Oscars Are Wrong podcast. And here we
Happy
are.
to be here. Hello.
Hello.
Hi
How's
there.
things? We decided just so many different movies and shows, and I was like, hey, if we're going to revisit one particular franchise, how about we talk about, to determine which parts were well written, let's just go with the antagonists. And we did this with Die Hard, and that was a hard one to do because like we really have nothing else to talk about other than Hans Gruber, because the others are fine, but
It's
they're
Hans
not.
Gruber or nothing.
Even though they did a good job, they didn't. It's just like with the James Bond villains. It's like you can't compete. It just and ruin it for everybody. So welcome. Kelsey was saying off air is like so much research and then having to implement what would have been a better alternative award season wise.
Yes.
Where do you fall on blockbusters like as we were joking off air, the Treadstone cinematic universe?
I think we're big fans of blockbusters. Not all of them, but generally the concept we appreciate, which is funny given our podcast is about such a highbrow thing as the Oscars.
Well, I
yeah.
think that's one of the things that's fun to do. So as you mentioned, the way our podcast works is we select a year at random. We watch all the Best Picture nominees, but we usually often try to bring in additional films that have what we call cultural relevance. And they're
Yes.
often genres that don't get a lot of attention at the Oscars, whether that's horror or action or sci-fi. And
Comedy.
Comedy. And it lets us touch on some of our favorite movies. And maybe to the point of this podcast, we did the 2002 ceremony, which honored the films of, it was the 2003 ceremony that honored the films of 2002. We get confused. And that was the year the Bourne Identity came out. And we did a whole bonus episode on the Bourne Identity because it is one of our favorites.
Yes,
So
we are
spent
Bourne Identity super fans.
a good hour talking about it because the Oscars often doesn't honor popcorn fare.
It deserves more respect.
It is hard though to like some are so well shot but so dumb, and then there's other
Sure.
ones which are very engaging, really do have a good script, but because they went by that genre, they were ignored. And I see horror and comedy fans complain about the same thing, and I get it, but it is like, man.
I think it's just that, there's a lot of not great ones, but there are plenty of not great serious dramas as well. It's about recognizing when something is really well made for what it is, right? Something could be a perfect comedy or a perfect horror movie, and that still doesn't get the respect generally of the Academy. So just broaden your horizons, everyone.
I would hope, man. I actually surprised my parents the other day when they're like, hey, like they saw an ad for some new upcoming blockbuster, and they were like, oh, Cam, you like car chases? And I was like, actually, those are the worst parts of any action movie. Take it out, nothing
Sometimes
changes.
they're good.
Oh, yeah,
like in Bourne movies.
yeah,
That's
and
true.
this is like an exception to the rule. This is like
Or what was that movie we watched, Maddie, where they had the car chase on the L with
Oh my God.
with Billy Crystal?
Yeah. What is that called? Gregory Hines. And
Running
they're
Scared.
Chicago cops. Yeah,
1986.
Running Scared.
Yes,
The car chase on the
L
Chicago
tracks.
L.
Pretty cool.
Remarkable. We've never
those are-
seen anything like it.
Those are fine. It's just, but when you get to like even like Lethal Weapon sequels, like take out the car chases because there's like 5 of them per movie. The
Yeah.
movie goes so much faster.
they can get a little, sort of self-indulgent as the movies go on. But when they're used for character, as they are in the Bourne
Yes.
movies,
Mhm.
great stuff.
The TV show 24 is good at it. Like it's like every 6 episode, but it's like earned because like, okay, he's got to get to that drop site and
Well, he's got time pressures. He's going to be driving
Right.
quickly all the time, I assume.
there's that. Some James Bond movies do it good. There's others that take it out. It's just to make it 150 minutes. Terminator, I think the better ones did it good at just
I mean,
showing how it's an
the
infinite chase.
LA like river stuff is just
Mhm.
good. Gotta love it. There's so many memorable ones. It's just that there's more trash than there is memorable anything, right?
Yep.
There's way more bad movies than there are good ones.
We've seen how bad it can be. Yeah. So I saw a lot of these on TNT back in the day with my father, and we saw Ultimatum in the theaters. So
It's a classic dad watch movie.
it was, but it really got me into. I think that's why I'm also into all the other screenwriters who talk fast. Tony Gilroy is kind of the B side of Aaron Sorkin. It was like someone's coming in.
That's a delightful comparison. Very glad you
slamming a
said that.
paper in the guy's face saying we gotta talk, and I was like, wow,
Mhm.
the CIA
Walk
can
with me.
actually be, yes, walk with me. The
There are
CIA
walk and talks in the Bourne movies for
Yep.
sure.
Mhm. Especially when we get to Noah Weiss, and this made me a David Strathairn fan, and he's gone on to everything. Good
Love
Onion,
David
like,
Strathairn.
speaking of fictional alien language that doesn't exist on The Expanse. So yeah, he's a scene still, but it was so funny how I see him here, and I just love how he's talking to all the techs who are all good New York based actors, and he's like, "Get me something on the visual now."
I mean, it's kind of fun. Sorry, I have loud outside noises because of this
Jason
city.
Bourne is racing.
Jason
past
Bourne is
them.
outside on a motorcycle.
Damn it.
It's kind of funny because these movies are not that old, but the first one is more than 20 years old now, and you do really feel the difference in the tech. It's funny to watch the
It
CIA
is.
try to chase them
Well,
down.
I was like, when he buys the burner phone in
Yes.
Waterloo Station, I was like, okay, that's at the time. But I'm always struck when I revisit them how post 9/11, early like Iraq War, Homeland Security they are. I think it's going to be very interesting as kids get older to see like how these play for them when they weren't in that
How did
in that
you
soup.
how do you
Yeah.
introduce you were talking earlier off air how you you know have to figure out different movies and shows that work for different crowds, and it's annoying when, especially where it's like, okay, well, historically this is an important movie. I drive my sister crazy anytime Lawrence of Arabia is on. I'm like, I'm watching it. I know, and I'm surprised she doesn't like it because she usually likes historical stuff. I'm like, this is no different than Lincoln or Deer Hunter.
A
Yes,
lot
it
of
is.
quiet, empty nothingness in Lawrence of Arabia. You really got to buy
Ouch.
into the cinematography.
I just like the whole, this guy is fighting a war no one wants him to fight, and he does it anyway. But
Yeah.
teach their own. But
I mean,
yeah, no,
I'm
so,
not shitting on Lawrence of Arabia. I'm just saying it's not for everyone.
hey, whatever works. But, so that's a good point on the tech. You might get more snobs who work for Screen Rant's 50 things wrong with this based on a screenshot on the Blu-ray I didn't notice the last 20
Sure.
times. And it's just like, well, that's when it was made. No one knew.
Well, yeah, there's the difference between something that's just old tech and something that's an error at the time.
At this time, I
So,
had a crappy Nokia phone. I didn't have an iPhone.
iPhones didn't exist.
No one
Right.
did.
And I didn't want one. I was a geezer before I was an actual geezer. I was like, I don't want to.
I'm just delighted by it. Every time I watch
Yeah.
older and someone has a flip phone, I just get very excited. I'm like,
I kind of miss the
flip
flip
phones.
phone.
Me
even
too.
There's a definite nostalgia.
there's
to the flip
there's a
phones.
tactile quality to a flip phone that
Game
it's
time.
just missing these days.
Yes, people don't think about the tactile quality of the phones much anymore. Have either of you seen BlackBerry, by the way?
No.
As an aside, I watched it recently. It's delightful, but there's a lot of conversation about the tactile quality of BlackBerry push button.
I held on to my phone that had a true keyboard for a very long time.
The
I was
new Apple
very
movie.
reluctant to give up my actual slide out QWERTY.
And the creator of
keyboard.
BlackBerry thought that everyone else agreed with you and him, but that apparently wasn't the case.
Well, me and other people often don't agree on technology. I'm holding on to things for a long time.
Some movies look bad in 4K, for instance.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Even
for
though they're
sure.
supposed to look better by default.
Well, better depends on what metrics we're using for that.
Clearer.
The older it is, the more it's going to be hard.
Looks
Yeah.
clearer.
Not everything should be crystal clear.
No.
I will be sure to check out that biography movie. I know there was something else on Apple that was another biography film with Elizabeth Banks. There was
She was in-
Tetris. and
Oh
then-
yeah, they've made
I
a lot
heard-
of those recently.
That's true. I've heard bad things about Tetris, but I haven't seen it myself.
The Beanie Bubble. My bad.
Just
That's the
passing
one.
that along.
The
Oh,
Beanie.
Beanie
yeah.
Bubble. The only
Yeah.
one I can vouch for is Blackberry, which I quite liked, which
Right.
has Glenn Howerton from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia in it, and he's very good.
He's amazing.
hmm
Okay.
But that's an aside. Back to the tech, and then
Mhm.
transitioning on to the villains.
Yes.
Bourne.
Yeah, no, the tech serves the purpose. It's I obviously they have certain computers, but they're not just like trying to get let's get a close up of this Dell or Apple machine.
Enhance.
Yeah, yeah, there you go. Enhance.
Yeah. But you're right. No,
and-
it's not very product placement-y in
Mhm.
the Bourne movies. I
Not
think
a-
it would be today. You'd have your
Absolutely.
Sony Bios or whatever.
It would have The Rock and Kevin Hart and a Pepsi ad.
They were
There you
just
go.
missing out on an opportunity for extra cash money.
I
I
suppose.
guess. I guess they got enough sponsorship to where it's like, as long as we see it on screen, we don't care.
Mhm.
So were you already fans of Will Hunting / Private Ryan?
Will Hunting / Private Ryan.
I don't remember. I mean, I think I saw The Bourne Identity in theaters.
Yeah.
We were 13 or so when this
Around the
movie
same
came
time
out.
he was doing the Kevin Smith movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I grew up in a household where like we were strict about ratings, so this was probably
Same.
one of the early PG-13
If it's on
movies that I-
TV, you can watch it. Otherwise,
that I got to see in the
Right.
theater. So I don't know that I came into it with like a strong feeling about Matt Damon as a 13-year-old. I don't know what I would have seen him in
oh good.
before
Mhm.
this.
Julia Stiles had just done Save the Last Dance, and
I might have
Yeah.
honestly had more feelings about Julia Stiles.
oh good.
As a 13-year-old girl in
As-
2002, yeah,
10 Things I
probably.
Hate About You, Save the Last Dance. I would have seen those for sure.
Um,
I don't know about you, Maddie. You
I
probably had seen
truly
Damon
do not
beforehand.
recall.
I
I'm
might have
guessing
seen
I would
O
have
on
seen.
TV.
I probably had seen some Damon before. I grew up in a household with much older sisters, and we were not. We were not that serious about ratings in my household. So
It's fine.
I wouldn't be surprised if I had seen various other Damon things. But I don't have a strong memory of the first time I watched this movie. I just feel like I've loved it forever.
It's
I've
been
always loved
there.
Bourne. Exactly.
Lovely.
It's a formative action film.
It kind of is. It does kind of make you want to see where was this film? Is it actually in Paris, or is it just a green screen with this?
And that's a good question. It looks like Europe. I'm sure they filmed it in Europe, but I don't know if it was Paris. They might have done like Prague, like everybody else does, or
It probably did.
Seems
Um,
on location though. But yeah, I think this would have been my first time seeing a number of these actors throughout these films.
Nice.
Meeting Chris Cooper and Brian Cox, legends.
Yeah, no, I wasn't super into Chris Cooper as a 12-year-old.
Because you hadn't seen October Sky yet.
I'd seen
I probably
American
had
Beauty
seen
on cable
October
TV,
Sky.
and he was in. I know there was Adaptation, and then there was The Kingdom and a few others. But yeah, my family knew him from Lonesome Dove.
Mm.
But yeah, he definitely was one of those. I'm like, yeah, that guy, he can carry a room. He doesn't have the looks, but he has that sharp kind of "don't you talk to me that way," and he is interesting to me in that he's not the one running the show.
Nope.
But
Mm-mm.
yeah, as Conklin, who is a big prominent figure in the books and even played by William Sadler, and there was a cool Bourne Conspiracy video game which was closer to the books but kind of followed this button mashing fighting style of the movies that I beat in about 2 days. And yeah, there's something about that guy. He's not the one pulling all the strings, but he feels like he is. We feel like he is until we are given more info.
Yeah.
and, oh, it's Abbott. Oh,
I mean, he's I would say the whole cast of the series, but definitely the first movie. They're all just like such pros. Everybody's super believable. You don't. There's no questioning Chris Cooper and Brian Cox as these government bureaucrat types. Like,
yeah,
there's no problem there.
totally.
I just think it's interesting. I don't know if I should start with this or conclude with this, but to me, on my rewatch of the first three, and in my mind, the only three Jason Bourne movies, I really think none of the villains / antagonists, whatever, are that unique or interesting. Because to me, the villains of the movie are like government overreach and the surveillance state and bureaucracy and stuff, right? Everybody who's against him is just an avatar of the government in some way. They're not
true.
evil and trying to kill him. They're just carrying out the orders of the day.
They're all brainwashed. There's only like most of the guys.
I mean, some of them are like
strings.
self-serving, selfish. They're not like nice people. They're just bureaucrats trying to get ahead in their jobs. But
we also learned that Brian Cox is like doing some shady shit with the Russians to make some cash on the side.
He's just greedy and selfish.
He's part of an operative, but yeah, he's really just covering up other stuff because he knows it could incriminate his other
but he's not like an evil mastermind, right? He's just like a guy trying to cover his tracks. Exactly. And so I think that's a good quality of all of the villains of the series.
I'm just glad that Pamela isn't the main.
Oh, she's not
a villain at all.
Nice. I mean, I think
she's just working here and realizing, we're
talking about like antagonists really more than villains throughout this. But
I just find that just wild how when Bourne infiltrates in, they're like, "How would he get in?" And they all look at her. They're like, "We know how he got in."
She is just she's naive, She has
Supremacy. Supremacy is the second one.
Yes.
Obviously, she is tricked, right? Like she truly doesn't know what's going on. And then by the third one, I think she's more on it, and she's like, "This isn't what I want to be doing."
Right.
And there is a naivete to like working for the CIA.
That's what I mean. I think the fact that she's like, "This isn't us," and you're like, "Okay, well, have you heard of the CIA?"
But
absolutely. Ezra Kramer is another one you might recognize. That's Scott Glenn from Right Stuff. He's now been more prominent on the Daredevil TV show, but when I saw that in the theater, my dad and I were like, "Hey, where's he been?"
Yeah. I mean, this is a series full of like that guy character actors, right?
Yeah,
like,
he doesn't.
Everybody in it is someone that you'll recognize.
Yeah, but at least he wasn't having to be so well dressed and everything. He was kind of more just like, "Are you going to get it done?" So get it done. And it's like he is basically filling everyone's pockets.
He's very much in the background of the film, just occasionally getting on the phone to be like, "Any updates? All right."
I'm surprised it's a CIA operation, because to me, for the most part, it feels more like NSA, where you're supposed to not acknowledge that any of these operatives exist at any point.
Well, there's lots of people who work for the CIA that are not ever to be acknowledged as CIA operatives, but
like instead of controlling like a big giant like protest or something, like they're doing some big infiltrations, and definitely I know almost all of them get into just legal fender benders because it's a total violation of our rights. But like these guys, like some of these mercs they're actually killing because they're like third party.
Yes,
complete third party, like on the side.
So they aren't maintaining the wall of separation as well as they should be.
Spy version of X-Men.
Do we want to go in chronological order through the films and the villains?
Since that's where you stand, yeah, that would make sense.
Okay.
I am happy to do that. So we've talked a little bit about Conklin and Abbott, right?
Yeah. They're up to something. They're kind of playing games with each other, and they're not on the same page.
Yes, they are very much not on the same page.
And Conklin is like, "The French know who he is. Damn it, we got to kill some cops too and get him out."
They are pretty trigger happy for people who are supposed to be running a covert organization.
Well, another thing we should talk about throughout this process is how competent is each of these quote unquote villains.
I think that's a good conversation to have.
I feel like the assassins are pretty competent,
Yeah.
but the uh the the ones doing all the ordering, like Vosen, when you get to he's in the background supremacy, and then you see him
Bosun
ultimatum.
gets schooled by Landy so many times, and it's
Just
delightful.
constantly.
But yeah, but that's so wild how he thinks he's in control and he's really not. And then you lose track of how many times he just kind of scolds. He's just like, ugh.
Mhm.
Hey, he
good.
doesn't even have any coffee. He just seems to be. I don't know if he got in on charisma or confidence, but
Who
Yeah.
knows?
Who knows what his career path
So-
was?
Then I guess, yeah, let's talk about the main guys of the first one, Conklin and Abbott. How competent are you feeling that they are, Kelsey?
I mean,
was what we knew at the time. Yeah.
Yes, without the knowledge of the
of later
supremacy.
movies,
Yeah,
Abbott seems fairly competent, right?
sure. I mean, he comes out of the whole thing scot-free in the first one.
Conklin's
does
loud.
unscathed. He pretends not to know what's going on. He really has full, awareness of what's going on.
Yep.
Conklin is always on, his back foot.
Mhm.
We talked about in our lengthy Bourne episode. I love the scene when Abbott comes in and says, "All right, you found him. How long does it take for them to come in?" Conklin's little assistant, Danny Zorn, is like, 24 to 48 hours. And Chris Cooper has to be like, I guess that's what it is. You're like,
Okay.
you're not getting him in 24 to 48 hours. Why did you let your assistant
Yeah.
Yeah, you should have jumped
question?
in. Why let Danny Zorn answer that?
I
Poor
did. That
sweet
is
Danny
that's a
Zorn.
golden line. It's like they kind of got realistic expectations, but then now that they're impatient, now that as soon as they got confirmation, now they want instant results. It's like, no, I see him. I haven't actually nabbed him. I haven't got him.
Well, I mean, the problem is at that point they're trying to sell like, well, we fleshed him out, but he's definitely just going to turn himself in because this is what they do. They do their mission and then
Mhm.
come back.
You're
But
like,
no,
you
he
needed
knows
to-
who he is. So
You needed to say at
knocking him
least
out.
72 hours.
72
bro.
would have been safer.
Yeah,
for
3
the-
days
24
is
to
way better.
48 is wild.
But that just shows you how ruthless they are to an extent, as well as they.
I feel like Danny panicked.
Yeah. Well, because Conklin, you're like, why are you looking at me? I'm
that was
terrified of
true.
Ward Abbott. Like, I don't want to have to answer this question.
No, that's true.
but
I love Gabriel Mac. Not Mac.
Man, I think his last name is right. Gabriel Mann.
Gabriel
Mm.
Mann. Yes, yeah, you're right. And it's a shame that he gets turned on. He's being used as a pawn by both
poor sweet
guys.
boy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in the first one, Brian Cox feels the most competent, the most ruthless, the biggest bad of that movie. Because
Right,
he
and when he's giving
knows
that
what he's
one,
doing.
it's like congressional hearing too.
At the end when he's like,
Yeah. It's under
Treadstone, it turned
control.
out didn't work out, so we shut it down. No big
And
deal.
he sicked that Treadstone agent on Chris Cooper. That's when you realize, like, oh
Yeah.
no, he's had full control this whole time. He's
Absolutely.
Well, that was
100%
what
in the
was
know.
wild too. It's like he's here for Bourne, and then Bourne kind of somehow turns the tables, making him. I thought he was there. I've always misremembered that. So it's like he wasn't there. You think he's there to kill Bourne, but yeah, he's there to.
Yeah, they try to
silence Con-
sell it because Cooper and Bourne are both walking down the street alone at the end of it, and we
Yeah.
see him come out of a car, and you assume he's going to kill Bourne, but instead he's there to kill Cooper.
That dude was kind of an underrated assassin. You almost thought it was a Star Wars. Will he be in the next chapter? Nope, just a one-off.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a shame
He's
he didn't come
good.
back.
But I do want to say, can we talk about not really a villain, but an antagonist, and the greatest one in my mind of the whole series?
Sure.
Wait.
Go ahead, but I want to talk about the first assassin as well if we're gonna have a conversation.
Yeah, we'll talk about him too.
The one who jumps through the
through the window.
Yeah.
window.
We'll talk about him. Let's do highlights and then bring in some lowlights from the
Okay.
All right. So
The
the
assassin.
pawns, the side
I think the
guys,
greatest antagonist in the series, and maybe one of the best performances with like less than 5 lines I've ever seen, is Clive Owen's the Professor.
Absolutely. If you listen to the riff tracks, I don't know if you guys know, that's the movie riffing guys who you sync up amusing commentary while you watch a movie.
Okay.
At one point, they're joking, giving the professor amusing lines to say, saying, "Get out of the way, kid, or I'll stab you with this pencil." It's so funny how that's just it. You're seeing him in the day as doing just that. He's teaching.
He's like teaching piano or something when you first see him.
and then getting ready to. We assume he had. It's implied that he killed the dog. of this
Mhm.
farmhouse
That is
that Bourne
sad.
and
It is sad. Maybe he just tied the dog up somewhere.
Okay, that's nice.
Let's all imagine that.
I'm sorry. I'm at least it wasn't seen. Lesser filmmaker would have shown an awful act. But yeah, Marie and Warner hanging out at the farmhouse. It was like her cousin or whatever, and some
I
fun
think
wild.
okay, let's try to settle this so I don't know that there's an answer. I think that is an ex-boyfriend of hers.
The
That is-
internet says it's her half brother.
Well, it's not because we meet her brother in the third movie or the second movie.
She can have a half brother and a
You can-
brother.
But they tell her
Yeah.
backstory and she
If
has
it's stated
a
in
brother.
the movie, come on.
It's not stated in the movie though.
I think it
Who
is.
the guy in the first one is.
I think she does. I think she says it's a relative.
Find me the dialogue and that will really ease my mind.
It's a guy she knows.
It's a guy she knows.
She knows.
I
Guy she
didn't get,
knows.
I've seen it a bunch of times. I didn't get any romantic aspect to it.
I mean, it's a guy she once knew, and to me, that just felt like it was an ex-boyfriend because otherwise it would be like someone who used to be her friend. But I don't think it's supposed to be a family member because they're specifically looking for a place where they won't be found, and so they don't want to go to a relative's house.
Hmm.
Anyways, this will just remain unsolved. they're at the guy's house.
No,
and yeah,
it says on the Wicca, Eamon is half brother to Mary.
okay.
I think Maddie is quibbling with the internet consensus.
Right. The internet can say what it likes, but I want someone to show me in the film where it says that is who he is.
Maybe it's in the book.
I think it is.
Maybe. That's a good point. Although then we're going to have to get into a debate about whether the book counts
No.
as canon for the
Okay.
movies.
You're right. Let's not get in. That's not what this episode
I don't want to
is.
have this
It's
debate.
Talk
on the
about Clive
Wicca. I'm sure it's in the commentary. I mean,
Talk about
Right.
Clive Owen, Maddie.
I just want to talk about Clive Owen. The subtlety, the pathos of this character, unbelievable. He builds so much in so little time. And then for us to get his iconic lines, his look at what they make you give, which then Bourne brings back in the third
I'd
movie.
forgotten
It
about
was such
that.
an impactful line to Bourne that he then says it to the assassin in the third movie. I mean, glorious stuff. Just,
what
just so
line
well
again?
done.
Give what you take or something?
Look at what they make you give.
Look at what you make.
Look at what they make you give.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, that's said by Albert Finney's mentor character.
Is it?
I thought it was. No, but you're saying-
Well, Bourne, the assassin who is chasing Bourne in the third movie that he doesn't kill.
Oh,
and this
Paz.
is another one
Okay.
he's like blows the
Yeah.
mind of by not killing them. And so
Yeah.
then on the roof at the end, they come face to face and he's like, "Why didn't you kill me?" And Bourne gives him the line,
Ah,
"Look at
that's
what they
right.
make you
Okay.
give." And you're like, "Oh my God."
Yeah. And yeah, the fact that when he meets Bourne and he's injured, the only thing he wants to do is connect with him and say,
But they
"Do you
keep
get the
them
headaches?"
so siloed from each other. And yeah, he's like, "Another one of me? Do you get the headaches?" I mean,
In-
it's
I get
such good
bad
writing.
headaches.
In the Treadstone TV show, they explored a little more. Legacy briefly built on it, as well as in this movie. But like in the Treadstone show, like they even kind of just give you an idea of like the day-to-day routine. What are they doing in between working
Mhm.
out and loading
Yeah.
all their super guns that only exist?
training.
Yeah.
Mhm. Clive Owen breaks my heart. He breaks my
know.
heart. He's so good.
We're not supposed to like him, but we kind of feel sad because
You absolutely like him.
he didn't
I mean,
have a chance.
that's what I think is also interesting. It's all of the assassin characters, which is why Bourne tries to not kill them when he can, are victims of the same thing as him, right? Like they've all been taken in by this
And this is
horrible
before he has his
system.
PTSD and starts remembering him, shooting a victim in a chair. It's like,
yeah.
they're no different than me. I'm
And they're all
basically killing-
exactly in the same situation, and they have just been like broken down and brainwashed and turned into these killing machines,
Mhm.
and they are kept entirely on their own, can't talk to each other, and you just feel like what perfect casting. Clive Owen is incredible. The writing in that
Yeah.
scene is so good, and it's just like incredibly memorable for such a short little scene. I really don't think he speaks more than 5 words or 5 lines in that scene, and it's like he's the best.
Does that
He's my
count the
favorite
moment at
other
the end where
character.
he's like, oh?
Sure, maybe 6.
I couldn't resist.
Can we talk about the other assassin?
Yes,
who
please.
is in it?
Absolutely, because there are 2
Oh,
other assassins, and the first one is
So the very
hilarious.
first one, he has a name. Who bursts
Castle, I
through-
think, is what I wrote down.
Yeah, Castile or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, I mean, it's a great scene. It's a
Yes.
like the way the tension builds in the scene, Bourne, getting his spidey sense that something's happening, him walking through the apartment, turning on the water, grabbing the knife, Marie coming
Dropping the
back in,
knife.
him
Yeah.
dropping the knife, and then this guy just bursts through the window, and they have a very exciting fight. But when you think about it, you're like, this was not subtle. Treadstone seems to be mostly subtle.
Yeah.
This guy seems like he didn't get
Most
the
of-
full suite of training.
Most of the confirmed kills that we know about from before the movie happened are like people who have made to look like they accidentally died or committed suicide or something. It's not just people bursting through windows
With a machine gun.
No, so true. And that's
into a
before
residential apartment.
Oh, that's before we get to Bourne meeting up with Marie and realizing we got to go on the run together. And we see the morgue attendant with a bullet in her head. And it's like, yeah, it's all very suspicious. And even though there's some serious work, you can only imagine what a procedural version of this would look like. It's like, you said what? This going in the cold case file.
I'm obsessed with that guy.
But yeah, that guy's hilarious. What's his deal? I mean, it's clearly not a usual situation to be fair to them, right? Because they have now activated all of their agents in Europe to come kill this guy by any means necessary, basically.
Before John Wick was doing it, they kind of were the precursors. Like, you got a text confirmation, go time, and it's all cryptic.
By the way, can we brief aside on the text? The texts, and to talk back about the tech conversation.
Sure.
It's like they've created an app on their phones that is just to notify them about
the
when
Apple Store.
they need to kill people. When it feels to me like they could just get a text that says like a code word or something,
Right.
and instead it's like
Mayonnaise,
mission received.
Execute. Yeah.
Anyway,
No,
hilarious.
so
but
true. Yeah,
it is funny how that guy comes in guns blazing.
He has a giant ass machine gun. Bourne kicks it out of his arm, but then it's even funnier how, it's like, it's a good establishment about all the heroes, how Marie is going to get like a frying pan or a gun if it falls down. But then it's even funnier how, Bourne, this introduces him before he uses rolled up magazines. He's having to use all kinds of.
I mean, it's a great fight scene.
Oh, it is. But
they're all great fight scenes, but yes, it is a great fight scene.
I don't know. I complain about shaky cam in other movies. I don't know why. I have glasses. I don't know why no one can see any of these fights. I see them just quite fine.
They look clear to me. I mean, people don't complain as much in the first one as the second one.
I can understand
too,
Batman or something else, but this, it's not too shaky for me.
I was prepared when rewatching the Greengrass movies to be like, oh, there's more shaky cam than I remembered, but it didn't. It felt subtle enough to me. I feel like
it's like a Tony Scott movie. I kind of find like Man on Fire or, but yeah,
I have no problems with it.
Yeah, but so true. Yeah, he just bursts on in there. You think he's like a ninja, and you're like, what? We just got here.
But we do have to say, him losing the fight and jumping out the window is like a very important moment in that movie because it really sets the tone for like the type of people that are chasing them.
He's like a suicide bomber, but he's like, nope, no way out. Mission will end with my own death.
And so then that really, for Marie in particular, but for both of them, it's like, this is weirder and more serious than I expected.
Were you expecting Wolverine or?
All right. So most competent assassin, I think we have to go with the last guy who kills Chris Cooper, even though we love Clive Owen. He does.
Well, he is the only one that makes it out alive in the first movie.
His name.
I think it's Mannheim is what I've looked up and found.
Yeah.
Least competent assassin, the first guy.
The first guy
there in that car, and you're like, what?
Yeah. It might have been easier to kill the professor, though, if I'm being honest. He just sort of like, shoots in the air and birds fly.
Well, to be fair, the professor comes up against Bourne. Mannheim just comes up against Chris Cooper, who was also incompetent. So, like, the matchups aren't quite fair.
I mean, Mannheim.
That's true.
Mannheim doesn't demonstrate great skill. It's just that he doesn't get killed in the first.
No. I see where you guys are both coming on this. So, like, yes, he's guilty by association, but I do kind of like how, how Kelsey is hinting at is like Mannheim is kind of just smooth. Like he could fit into any situation, but at the same time, he's basically killing his old boss. He's like, bon voyage.
All he had to do was walk up to an old guy walking down the street and pull the
Now,
trigger a couple
you'll
of
love
times. There was
this.
no hand-to-hand combat involved.
An
You'll love
injured old
this.
guy.
They do a
Yeah.
rewrite, and I forgot about this. In the Bourne Conspiracy video game, Kelsey, you're gonna love this. He is the main antagonist.
Mannheim?
Mannheim?
Yes, I'm not kidding.
Interesting.
Wow.
So,
That's a
and he does
surprise.
more than just pew.
Yeah, I have to assume it's in his bag of
You have
tricks.
to. He's way more. He looks kind of the same. I'll actually send you the Wicca article on the
Mhm.
Bourne directory. Thank you, Wicca.
Nice.
I used to do a lot of Wiccas. But yeah, he's the final boss, and he is disarming you with your own weapons and everything, and blowing up gas tanks in
That's
a
cool.
church.
I mean, I will say, I think that the first guy demonstrates the most like fighting skill of any of them. It's just that he, loses.
Comes in hot.
He loses big time.
Yeah,
He loses big time and he comes
someone
in
had
hot.
to do it.
But they sort of decline in intensity, right? Like the first one is this big hand-to-hand combat scene, and then the professor is more of an emotional hit than anything. And then the final one is like, no big
I mean,
deal.
Paz
Just,
is
it's just
mainly-
professional.
Oh, are we ranking the villains on who does the most emotional damage?
I mean, they're all
There's
kind of
no
unemotional.
contest. I mean, it's the professor by a long,
Okay,
long shot.
I didn't know this was a factor, but I like it. So Paz, at least I got to give him the car demolition derby that he does. I mean, he's in freaking New York.
This is an ultimatum. Are
Yeah.
we skipping ahead? Should we do
I
supremacy?
am.
Let's
This
do
was a-
supremacy.
Okay, well, see, Kirill, we were gonna
Yeah.
hate him anyway, just because he killed a beloved, love interest and everything, and Carl Urban.
But on the other hand, he's Carl Urban, so I
He-
can't
he-
hate him.
I
so
feel
you're
like
like my
there's three
sister,
groups
yes.
in supremacy. There's the CIA guys, there's the CIA assassins, and then there's the Russians. And the Russians are different.
So yeah, Grechkov, played by Carol Roden, who you guys might know from Hellboy and Blade 2. He's apparently an oil tycoon, and I liked him. I forget that he's in because they're just so, again, Abbott kind of stills the first half of the movie, and then Kirill is coming in, knocking out cops, and you're like, hey, Yomer from Lord of the Rings, dude from Riddick and Doom. What the hell?
I love Carl Urban. I think if we're having a competence, like a decision-making discussion, right?
Sure.
You have to get at the critical question of, should they have tried to frame Bourne or just leave him alone? Just leave him out there, leave him alone.
I was
Just
cool with
dumb
that.
and bad.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was cool with that because, I mean, it was either going
it
to
makes
end
the
with them
movie
killing
happen.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it kind of made sense. They didn't know how serious it was at first.
But
Yeah, they
how
were-
could they? I mean, it's Brian Cox who sets him up. Like, how do you not know how serious it is?
I mean, just
idea.
look at it this way. They're still trying to cover up his mess, and he's just linked
But
to it.
Bourne's
by
just
Jeremy.
gone. He's just under the radar, ghosted,
I know,
hasn't
but
talked to them in years.
That's the problem. It's a mixture of both callous government people and bureaucrats. So they're all just like, hey, this makes us look bad. We better eliminate him instead of let him live retired.
It
not
just
hurting.
feels. I mean, I don't blame the Russians because they don't know Jason Bourne from anybody.
Stupid Russian.
But like for Brian Cox to dredge up Jason Bourne just feels
They should
pretty
have
dumb.
tried to frame one of the killed assassins, like Clive Owen or something.
Yeah, find someone who was actually already dead.
We'll return after these messages.
The Jacked Up Review Show podcast is honored to be part of the Blind Knowledge Podcast Network. Join anytime, talk the talk, and enjoy yourselves. There's something enlightening for everyone with this crowd of cool cats. Check them out.
Hey, it's Brent Pope, the host of Breakfast with Brent Pope. You've seen me on some of your favorite TV shows saying things like, give it up, Jimmy. You got to sink this putt to win. On Breakfast with Brent Pope, I sit down with guests from the entertainment world and we do it all over breakfast. Or should I say Brentfast? Every week on Brentfast, you get inside Hollywood info and tips, great breakfast recs and foodie debates. Most of all, you get the most delightful 30 minutes of your week. So dig in. It's Brentfast time. Listen at Brentfast.com, Apple Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are found.
Do you ever find yourself thinking about who would win in a fight between Goku and Superman? Hi, I'm James Gabsy, and on the Who Would Win show, me and my co-host Ray ignore anything important happening in the outside world and debate fictional battles between characters from comics, movies, and video games.
We got a new show every week, and almost always am I the winner.
Yeah, not true, Ray.
In the past, we've discussed such matches as Captain America versus Darth Vader, Solid Snake versus the Iron Giant, classic matchups like RoboCop versus Terminator, and even the Muppets versus Sesame Street.
That one was crazy. So if you're a fan of geek culture and love a spirited debate, check out the Who Would Win Show wherever you get your podcasts, or check us out at whowouldwinshow.com.
Instead of planning to kill Jason Bourne and then not being able to do it.
Yeah. This professor went crazy and he killed a couple at a farm and he blew it up. Yeah. Yeah, that works out. But yeah, I think he and Carl Urban could have had he and the professor could have duked it out. Maybe even the other guy who, Pat, who went Kirill. But yeah, I just said it the wrong way. But the guy at the hotel in the first one. But at the same time, Kirill is kind of just better at. I mean, several times Bourne has the police slow him down, and he finds a way to just knock out like literally a SWAT team's worth. Steal their car. So, but
yeah,
I think he's fine, but he's full of shit. Kind of, he's full of himself. So I don't think he's as good as.
You're talking about Kirill?
Yeah.
He's full of himself? That's an interesting
Yeah,
read.
because he's constantly grinning. He's like, I got you now, little gerbil. And he's like, no, you don't got him.
He does, in the scene where Bourne ends up calling the cops and he gets arrested when he's shooting him from the bridge, he does hit his shoulder. He doesn't
he hits him.
A kill shot in.
He does, but then he also lets his guard down, thinking he's gotten the job done. He's like, you didn't kill your target.
Well, yeah, him not finding his body in
India.
Were they India in the beginning?
Mm-hmm.
That's his biggest problem. That's the biggest mistake of Kirill. But I will say, to be fair, he doesn't really know what Jason Bourne's whole deal is.
Well,
they never alert people.
This is why I think there's a plot hole. You would think they would have briefed him saying, hey, extremely dangerous.
But this is what I think all comes back to Brian Cox. I think the second movie undercuts Brian Cox a lot.
Yes.
He feels he's way dumber
much
in the
less
second
competent.
movie.
I mean, when you're greedy and you've gotten away with it, you're gonna probably let your fingers slip. Be butterfingers.
I just think, I mean,
what do I know?
You've lived your whole life. He's at the end of his career. He's gotten away with any number of horrible shit, and he's still this bad at covering up his tracks. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Cox makes the critical decision, the critical error. He probably does not tell Gretkov and Kirill, like, seriously.
Just so you know, the guy I'm sending you to kill is the hardest person to kill in the world.
He's the most dangerous.
He's unkillable.
And so, yeah, I think it does all come back to Cox.
He probably thought he was killing a Steven Seagal type, and you're like, nope, this guy works out.
Yeah. Well, and I find Kirill interesting because in the scene where the cops come, there's a little bit of like a reveal that he's Russian Secret Service, right? And so, because he could have just been some mercenary, whatever, throughout. And then you're like, oh, okay, Russian Secret Service working off the books with this oil guy. Like, I buy it. But then you do sort of wonder, because he's the first assassin that we've met who's not a Treadstone operative. Like, what is his training, right? What have they done to him?
It's not as good as Treadstone.
It's not as good as Treadstone.
That is true. By being a third party who wasn't with Treadstone, he's not as briefed up on him.
Yeah. So I feel a little bad for him. I mean, obviously I have my own soft spot for Karl Urban, so just his presence I find delightful.
It's a good performance.
I do think he's like, an interesting character. He's presenting a challenge. He fucks Bourne up way more than we've seen anybody else do. At this point.
Hold that thought.
And he thinks he did the job, and then he just wants to have a month off, and you're like, I got you, man.
He just wants a month off at the strip club.
That's true. He's a good quarterback.
I love anytime anything takes place in Russia and someone's in a club and then they go
and then they come out in the daylight. I'm obsessed. It's such a good shot every time. But yeah, I think he's interesting. And then he's yet another. I really like the growing number of assassins that Bourne could kill but leaves alive, and then they are left to deal with the repercussions of like, why would he not kill me? This is blowing my mind right now.
No, I mean, even with the journalist himself, he's like, I thought you guys killed people. He's like, I'm not one of them. But
Poor journalist. We should also talk about the other Treadstone agent who is in this movie, who he goes to talk to in Germany. I think his name is
Oh yeah, Martin Sokus, and
Yes.
another Lord of the Rings guy. You've seen him as one of Galadriel's elf helpers. He's one of the aliens in Star Wars 2, and he's been in Kingdom of Heaven and Iron Flux, and you saw him in The Equalizer. He's the main Russian guy who Denzel fights. Yeah, no. He's a New Zealand guy, so same kind of deal where you're like, you bastard, you do your job so well.
But they went to New Zealand to really hire out for this movie.
Yes.
Yeah, so he goes to talk to him to try to figure out why they're still after him. He's like the one remaining Treadstone agent, which makes it seem like the guy from the last movie must have died, which is
Yeah, bummer for him.
yeah.
Allegedly.
And so they have a pretty good fight scene too, but he rocks.
Yeah, I mean that's a great fight scene with the blinds and the
And his hands
toaster.
are zip tied.
The zip tied hands. The second movie really builds on the stuff from the first movie of the like close combat and grabbing whatever's at hand, and yeah, the rolled up magazine is like
Absolutely
ideal.
when that
perfect
premiered,
weapon.
we rewound on our DVR like 3 different times. We're like, how did they film that scene? 'Cause,
Yeah, but the two of them shoving each other against the blinds always kills me. That stays.
that
It's
is
so
like the
visual.
only bit of humor, in that otherwise gritty fight scene.
I do
And then
have a
they do-
strong sense memory too of when he finishes that fight and then he goes into the closet
Yeah.
and he's fiddling around. I'm like, what is he doing? And then he blows up that
Yeah.
house with a toaster and a
Yes,
rolled up
oh my
The
God.
magazine and a toaster is genius, and they
those
do. There is
henchmen
that.
come up and they haven't even
Yeah, the
checked
henchman
out.
blowing up.
Mhm.
I
But
like the
Jarvis is his
little
name.
the turn in that scene where he's
We're the
interrogating
last
him.
two.
And right, but he's interrogating him, and then in the middle of the conversation, the guy is like, you're not here to kill me, like, sorry. And you get that, did you call it in, what happened, and it amps it up.
Yeah.
But that's fun that he would just, I would assume he was here to kill me, so
Yeah.
Gotta
Better safe
call
than
it in.
sorry with Jason Bourne around. He's
Yeah,
very
exactly.
dangerous.
No,
He's
that's
super
true.
dangerous.
They're too careful for their own good.
yeah, because
And
if he hadn't, that conversation could have just ended with Bourne being like, all right, thanks for the info,
There
Yeah.
you go.
bye.
So
Although I
fact.
realized this time around, I think that guy lives in a duplex. I felt really bad for his neighbor.
yeah, keep it down.
Hopefully they weren't home.
So fun
No,
fact.
they blew up the house.
I
His
understand, but
duplex is
it would be
ruined.
worse if they were home.
So fun
That's
fact.
true. You're
he's
absolutely
one
right.
of, Fun fact. He's one of 2 assassins to actually strangle Bourne.
Yeah.
That's true.
The strangulation.
Oh, you know when you start to realize things are really going south for Brian Cox in this movie when he kills Danny Zorn, and you're like, you're out of
It's
control.
his
sir.
worst moment. That's the worst thing that Abbott does is kill Danny
Yeah.
Zorn, especially when you're not going to get away with it at this point. Like the fact that Danny Zorn has figured you out means you're screwed.
Mhm.
I mean, there's no getting away with it. I don't know how you think the killing Danny Zorn is
Hey,
going
he
to get
thought
out
he
of
was
this.
above
It's a
it.
meaningless kill. I just think the whole thing with him and how they try to frame Jason Bourne is just lazy and dumb. And the stuff that they have Bourne do is stuff that no Treadstone operative would ever do. He just happened to leave a fingerprint on the explosive device. Like, they don't act like this. It's so lazy. And the fact that
Really?
it takes as long as it does for people to start questioning it, I think is interesting.
Well, I don't think Landy has a deep understanding of Treadstone, so she's learning as she's going.
Although
it's so
Landy is the one who's
busy.
like, I something doesn't feel right about this.
Well, Nikki
right?
is also credulous
Yeah.
from the beginning too. She's like, this doesn't sound like.
Well, Nikki is the one who knows the most about them. So she shows up and is like, yeah, Jason Bourne would not do that. He would not do that. None
But
of it's making
ultimately,
sense.
it doesn't really matter because they know the truth, but they still want to silence him anyway because he knows too much.
Well, Cox knows the truth, but they've
Well, but
thrown
you hear sort of-
Landy
remember
in the
she
hen
hears-
house here.
Remember, she hears part of Nikki's telephone chat when she
Nikki's
confronts
telephone.
when she has the wiretap and she's trying to confront him.
Uh-huh.
So they're like, okay, he may not be behind it, but we still got to bring him in or kill him.
Well, but yeah, Landy the whole time in the second one is starting to be like, I don't trust the way that you're acting in this situation. It's very suspicious. So she is there to question everything. She becomes pretty quickly like not much of an antagonist.
Yeah, no, I'm cool with it. Joan Allen's a good actress.
And it's also the first time when Jason's watching her from afar, and she's like,
It's so good.
Where are you?
You look tired.
You
Well,
fucking
so
people. Yeah.
I want Nikki. I don't
It's
know
so
if I can
funny.
find her. You
It's
should
so
be able to.
funny.
She's standing right next to you.
It's funny
okay.
hearing it on TV where it's like, you people.
Oh, the editing of
There's some
her
F-bombs.
TV.
Oh, well,
Oh,
it's even
that's funny.
wilder. I saw an NBC broadcast back in like the late 2010s, and they don't do what they do on cable. They actually cut like to an outside when Abbott is shooting himself.
Hmm.
Like an outside.
I mean,
You see an exterior shot in Pamela's screen. I'm like, really? They
I
thought
love the
that was a thing?
compilation videos of the funny substitutes they do.
Oh, they're the
Yes.
best.
on TV. Those are so good.
Always the best.
Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
Yes.
I mean,
it's
that's
the worst.
genius.
Oh man.
I mean, my favorite one, not to derail us, is Big Lebowski when John Goodman is smashing the car and he says in the edited version, "This is what happens when you meet a stranger in the Alps."
Yes. Oh my god.
That's
You're like,
great.
what?
That doesn't make any sense.
Is it just because it's random and that's why he's yeah, okay.
Trying to match up the mouth to the mouth.
This is what happens. They should have the like bad lip reading guys do it.
Yeah.
That would be fun. So has Edgar Ramirez's character in Ultimatum is basically doing what Kirill does in Supremacy, where he gets into car chases, but I gotta hand it to Dash. Like he is before Nikki distracts him, like he's given Bourne a bunch of trouble. Like he is jumping, with all this parkour.
Dash is tough.
And Nikki like grabs him like by his mouth, and he just like flips around and then like looks her away. He's
Nikki
like,
tries to get involved in that fight, but it doesn't last for long.
No, she's not a
And
lot
then
of help.
It's the first time we see Bourne having to like ice his hands. Like, jeez.
Well, I think he's looking at his hands because he's sad that he had to murder that guy. Like that's the metaphorical blood on
There's
his
a bit of
hands at the
that.
end of it.
It's very cold, and I like how it's lit. You're like, I don't want to have to
Yeah.
do this. You could have been one of us.
The whole thing. I mean, the fight's really good. I think that's when he's using the book to beat him up,
Mhm.
right? He's using the
Yes.
spine of the book, and then he punches.
Well,
the
because
book.
because Dash is getting all those metal objects.
Yeah. Well, and then he uses a towel in the bathroom that he ultimately.
Yes. Oh my god.
But that whole scene is so good because the Tangier rooftop chase is just like incredibly well shot. Good cat and
And-
mouse stuff.
Bourne does start at a disadvantage because he gets a little blowed up at the beginning.
Yep.
He sure does. What's remarkable to me is that if I'm recalling correctly, he's standing in between he's in front of the car and the bomb is on the other side of him.
Yes.
And he doesn't die, but the guy in the car dies. So you're like,
Yep.
he really is remarkably tough, this Jason Bourne.
You know, on instinct, he turned his body in such a way that he survived. Because that's
Oh, wait. Can we go back 1 second to the last movie? Speaking of turning his body in such a way, I'm obsessed with the car crash. Maybe it's the third one now. I can't remember.
Oh, when he grabs the seatbelt.
When he grabs the seatbelt, he's not buckled in. Yeah,
That's when Kirill is fighting in. Yeah.
No, that's
it's
the third one.
I
He
think
drives
you're
off the
right.
roof because there's that.
Because
Oh, well, he
there's-
does that too, but remember
that
he also
great
does
move.
it. So he does it in both.
Oh, does he? Okay, there's
'Cause
that
in
great
part
moment in the
two,
third one.
That's how he gets
when-
Kirill in a trap and makes him collide.
Oh, okay.
But-
There's also he grabs the seatbelt when he drives off the roof because I love that moment.
He
when-
drove off the roof.
Yeah, when
It's
the guy
not when
says
he-
to Strathern, "Sir, he drove off the roof," and Strathern just goes, "What?"
Oh, I don't think that's what I'm thinking of. I think I'm thinking of there's a like little parallel moment in the third movie when he's stolen the cop car and they're chasing him, and the car gets sideways and goes up over that barrier, which reminds me of how Kirill gets driven
That's
into the barrier.
I can never remember if that's before or after the roof.
Is that when he grabs the
knows?
seatbelt, or is it the seatbelt?
I
when
think
he
that's
drives
when
off
he grabs
roof?
the seatbelt.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Well,
But
anyway,
I
there's
don't
a
know.
car
But him
crash and he
driving off the
grabs
roof is
seatbelt.
amazing too.
Sir, he drove.
He
off
drove
the
off the roof.
What? Strathern.
In fact,
Bosun's never prepared for anything that Jason does.
oh, totally. But Dash is probably an underrated actor. I would like to see more of him. Yeah,
He's great.
You guys
He's
might have
really
seen him.
scary.
He was one of the ninjas in Batman Begins. He was in one of the Mission Impossibles. You might have seen him in the Old Guard with Charlize Theron. And
Does he speak?
yeah,
What does he say? I don't even remember Desh talking.
he's in Snow White and the Huntsman. and
No,
a few
not
others.
does the actor speak. Does Desh speak in the third movie? I don't feel like he has any lines.
I thought he said something in foreign tongue, but
I don't know. But I do think he's primarily a stunt performer.
he
Yeah.
is. He's in a John Cusack spy movie, and he's done some Street Fighter fan films. But yeah, he's a stuntman actor.
I don't think he has a lot of lines. If you know,
He just gets his pop-up app alerts about the people that he's supposed to murder.
Let's see, Dash.
and he executes.
And he executes, except that he doesn't, because he doesn't
Well,
kill.
no, but he did kill the guy. The one guy he was supposed to kill.
Yeah, he
kills that-
did.
Yeah.
that guy.
But he
So-
didn't kill Jason or Julia Stiles.
I mean,
So he's 1 for 3.
he has a demo reel, and he definitely talked to Matt. But yeah,
You can't win them all. But
No,
he
at
killed
least
that
he looked.
one
At least he looked like
did.
he belonged. Like he was.
He looks
a
great.
movie.
Oh no, he
Ver-
does a really good job.
I have no complaints about Desh. I just, as I got through it, I was like, I don't know if he has
He
spoken.
might not have had any lines in the film, but that's okay. He
That's
doesn't need
okay.
them.
He's doing it all with his performance.
Yes.
Lines are unnecessary. But yeah, Desh is really good.
It's better than the other lines where they go, "Jesus Christ, it's Jason."
That's true.
No,
They never
that's-
add in like your traditional action movie dialogue from the fights in these movies.
I was so excited when we got to that part where Strathern says the immortal line, Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
And you
My-
somehow are able to take it serious versus other ones where you're
Because
like,
they're all
I'm
very
predicting-
good actors.
I know.
My younger brother and his friends in college would say that all the like if anyone ever said Jesus Christ, someone would come
Jason
in and say
Bourne.
that's Jason Bourne.
You know, 07 was a cool year. This is the same year as this is Sparta and John McClane just kill a helicopter with a car.
Oh yeah.
Jesus Christ.
What a year.
Jesus Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
I mean, you'd be nervous too.
Find him, stall
I
him, kill
mean,
him.
if you knew it was good for you, you would just run in the other direction.
Oh.
But we haven't talked about. I do want to talk a little bit about the Waterloo scene, and just to call it out because it's so incredibly well done. And we do have another one of our assassins there trying to shoot
yes,
them.
and that is probably my favorite of where he's fighting multiple people all at the same time because there's 5 like CIA guys. Who
Yeah,
come
when he
in.
huddles him into the like hallway behind one
And
of the
He
stores,
does
and they
like
all
a
go after him.
cool kind of like before Liam Neeson was doing it. It's like he's doing like a Krav Maga take, and
Mhm.
he hits those guys with their own guns. He hides them up there, and then he hits one guy and rams him into 2 other guys, knocking them out. I'm like, that's great. I
And
love
that's
that.
the scene where Strathern sees him and says, Jesus Christ.
Because he
Jason
at the end of it, he just looks
Yep.
up directly into the
Could come around.
camera, and it's like, oh no, you guys have problems.
You're on camera.
love the way-
camera.
That whole scene plays out though because he's just taking people out, and they can't figure out why their agents keep disappearing. And
Yeah,
they're like, "What happened?
that is some good editing.
We've lost the first guy. Okay, well, we've lost a couple more guys. Like, what's
Oh,
going on
absolutely.
down there?" And then when he reveals himself, they're like, "Oh,
No, so true because like it was cool seeing him dispatch the embassy guards and off-duty cops, but and seeing him escape an entire SWAT team before they even get to the house and blow some other guys out. But here, like you say, he's actually out in the open, and you're seeing all the dots on the screen vanish. And you're
yeah."
like,
Well, it's just, I mean, it's all like this beautiful ballet, right? The choreography of that scene is
Mhm.
so interesting, and the way he's trying to direct him around the cameras, and he's
You,
picking
go
out
over
the
here.
different
Wham.
assets and just like very quietly and subtly dispatching them, like the guy that he hits with his own like the drug needle that he was going to
Mhm.
use on the journalist, and he just
Oh,
sits him
man.
down on a bench.
Sit on right down there. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was true. Is like, and no one, and of course, it is easy to not notice that in a airport. You think
it's so
"Hey, the
crowded,
guy's
no one's paying
drunk,"
attention. It's a train station. It's like the biggest train station in
He's a
London.
drug
and-
dealer with a headset, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just so good, and it's devastating to me when the journalist freaks out and disobeys him because you're just like
yeah, he's the Leroy Jenkins of the team. I love you, Patty Considine.
Patty. He was really seeing you through, Patty. You gotta just listen to
came here
Bourne.
for you.
He panicked.
And that's actually a good
He
one,
really
'cause
panicked.
much like you see more of Nikki in this one, I do like how you see more of Bourne's like he actually wants to actually, honor the guy, but he can't without getting caught. So he's just like, he's gonna have
All
to
he can do is go take his journal and get the hell out of there.
I was surprised what blood they got away with in that, and that's where it kind of opened up my mind. It's like, so just like this in Lord of the Rings, they kind of cut away before it gets too violent. While then you saw other stuff like Shooter and had Happy. It's like, oh well, that's the blood's there is pure red, so that's why I got the R. Like, God,
There's not that much blood in these movies, really.
You see it in the.
It's occasional.
Right,
I mean, it's
with
not
the
like
knife
watching
fight,
something
but-
from the 50s where somebody gets shot and there's no blood at all. But
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
But-
there's
Or
not
Star
very
Trek and it's all
explosive
green.
squibs in this
No.
one.
Yeah, that's true. It's not peck and paw.
but
Oh, man. It's not
yeah,
Wachowski
that
level.
Waterloo scene I just think is so good, and it gives you a little something that you haven't seen in the first two movies, right? To
So are you
watch him
convinced?
choreograph it.
Are you convinced that Jason Bourne could infiltrate the Matrix faster than Neo?
Am I convinced?
Well, I feel like, what do you
Because
mean?
Neo took a while to become a Jesus Christ savior, and here he's on.
Didn't he
he's
just get
on all-
downloaded with all the information?
I know. I know.
Yeah, I
but
mean,
it still took him 3 movies. To kick
Neo's
and
journey
dismiss
is
that.
just about like
I'm convinced Bourne
believing
could
in
plug in
himself,
there,
really.
and he would know where to go. And we're
I don't think Neo's thing is about having these
I think
fighting skills.
Here's the question. Is there a map that Jason could get a hold of? Because if Jason can get a map, then yes. But if
Yes,
it's
Jason
Jason
with a map to the Matrix.
Like, this is not a good place to go.
The man
I
always
just
looks
think-
at a map. The man loves to
The
reference
maps
a
are so
map.
good.
He
Okay,
does like
we
to
didn't talk
reference a
about it
map. So okay,
from the
there you
second
go.
movie, but one of my favorite moments in any of them is when he has been shot and he goes into the grocery store and he
That's so
picks up a map and some socks and some vodka. And
No,
you're
that's
like,
true,
this is
yeah.
the weirdest shopping list I've ever seen. And he uses all of them immediately. But the checking
And
the
then you
maps
get
is
to
good.
the
I just
third
feel like
movie, and he's got the other guy saying, "Just sew this up. Not here to kill you.
Mhm.
And you need to do it now before these other cops who are narcs are looking to come in here and arrest me, and I'll be
all these
gone in 5
pesky
seconds.
cops.
Yeah, if you just remove the bullet and stitch me."
I just think that Neo just needed to learn to like be the Matrix. It's not about learning.
Well,
the
that's what I
skills.
said.
It's
That's
about-
what I'm.
I don't think that's Jason Bourne's skill, though. I don't
Well,
think
no,
that's
but
his
Bourne
skill
is all
set.
about he literally is almost the Terminator. He like scans the whole thing. He's like, I know what I need to do and how
I
I'm
think
going
he
to get
needs
there.
a map. If he
Yeah.
has a map, then
A
sure.
map makes it
If
go
he doesn't have a
faster.
map.
But he
I
could
don't
like.
think there's a map to the Matrix.
He
Oh.
always gets a map.
I
Yes,
just
he
think
does.
he'd be. I just think he'd be faster than the actual agents because he really is lightning.
Well, if that's the question, if Jason Bourne was sent into the Matrix to kill Neo, would he win? And the answer is yes.
Well, but I'm thinking he would also kill all the agents. Like punch them so hard to where they can't respawn.
But it's hard to punch computer code that hard, you know?
I don't know. I think this is the equivalent of winning a chess game with the computer. Like he is. He doesn't need to know what level
It's a
on.
shame we'll never know.
I
The
know.
world needs a Predator versus Alien version of Jason Bourne
there you
in the
go.
Matrix.
I'm gonna write the dynamite, and I.
Well, I
need
mean,
comics.
Jason
Let's do a
Bourne
crossover.
versus John Wick is a movie.
I would see that. I would love to
for
see
the
that.
ages.
If you want a
But
cool
why
one,
would the two fight each other? Neither of them wants to be an assassin.
let's just say they're forced to do a tournament against each other. Like people will die if they don't fight each other. Just something like that.
I think they'll figure out a way to dismantle the system and
They
take
could do
down the
that too.
bad guys
And
together
go out together. That'd
and
be
adopt
so
another
nice.
dog.
They could get another dog for Eamon.
Exactly.
There you go. If you do want a fun versus match podcast, check out the Who Would Win show. They'll give you
Okay.
very amusing trivia and versus outcomes. They just did one with Bourne and Jack Bauer, so
Mm.
and it was
Okay.
close because I love both
Spy
characters.
versus spy.
Spy versus spy, exactly.
Yeah, that's what he says.
Okay. So the third movie, we've done the first
So
guy
Daz and
trying to kill
Pat-
him. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was cool that you saw the thing with the professor. But who reigns supreme in Ultimatum? Because again, the guys.
Wait, I do want to say, I think the most evil character in Ultimatum is someone we haven't mentioned yet, and that's Dr. Albert Hirsch.
Oh yeah, Albert Finney. He sucks.
Yes, very
To me,
undermentioned. Yeah, because he's the one running
He
it
is
all.
he's the most evil guy. He's a doctor who used his skills to just torment and torture people.
Absolutely.
For,
You know,
for
did
what
not
reason?
Follow his Hippocratic
Oh, no.
oath.
He is anti-Hippocratic oath, and everything
Oh my
he
God,
did
guys.
is so awful.
there's an actual doctor in Dallas with his name.
Doctor in what?
There's an actual doctor with that same name in Dallas.
Oh, with
I'm like,
Albert Hirsch, his
A
name.
preventive
That's
medicine
tough.
specialist. I'm like, I'm not going to
That's
your
a bummer.
office. I'm not going to your office.
That's rough,
Nothing
buddy.
personal.
But yeah, to me, it's like everybody else is just either some dumb, government job person or some like greedy bureaucrat type. And he is actively evil. Like, why would you decide to do this program to take
Yeah.
these poor people and torture them so much that they forget who they are?
Oh, yeah.
And then the whole way through,
Is-
he just blames Jason the whole time. He's like,
Yeah.
you signed up for it. You remember you signed up for it, right? And it's like, he didn't
Mhm.
I would've
understand
known.
what he was signing up for.
You'll love
Yeah.
this. You'll love this. My father was watching one of those on our last airplane trip, and he was watching one of them just while he got up from a nap, and he's like, "So, what's the one Bourne movie where he confronts the bad guy?" And I'm like, "You got to give me way more."
Yeah, he confronts
detail
a lot
than
of
that.
bad guys,
That's
to be
all
fair.
of them. And finally, there's a guy. He's got glasses, and Bourne's got a gun to his head. Okay. Albert. You're talking about the main big cheese.
Yeah.
He's getting his memory back. But it took a minute. I'm like, you got to give me more than that.
Yeah. Tell me who it was.
Yeah.
He is the closest to like a true mastermind.
my mom does this with the cop shows. She's like, what's that one with that beautiful blonde detective? I'm like,
Yeah,
we're gonna
that
be here
works.
all day.
But yeah, that guy is the most evil
Yes.
of all of them.
But like you say, he has no remorse. He has no regret.
He
But
doesn't feel bad at all.
then, in fact, I always like to joke that Abbott is actually Wolverine's creator, Stryker. But in a way,
It's
he's
very
kinda-
similar.
He's
Yeah.
Albert is definitely closer to the X-Men guys, where he's just like, he's not even about the greater good. He's all like, it's got to happen, and it's got to be. All
He's
these
like a
young guys.
kind of a mad scientist, right? Like
Mhm.
he had an idea and then wondered if he could do it. Why?
And he thought it was a
Just
good
to see if
idea.
I could.
Yeah. He's like, no
And he
regrets.
could.
And he
Wow.
could.
Mhm.
Wow. I
Although
don't
it wasn't a perfect science because it eventually didn't work on Bourne.
That's true.
Oh,
I don't know
man.
how well it was working on Clive Owen either.
Oh, he gets such bad headaches.
I get such bad headaches. Look at what they make you give. I don't feel like we've talked enough about Strathairn's incompetence.
Yes, please. Let's talk about
Yes.
Noah Vosen because he
Yeah.
is so dumb.
He gets the great lines. He's so full of shit, and he just seems to he's insecure.
Yeah.
When you yell and raise your voice, that doesn't make people respect you more. That makes them hate you
No,
more.
especially not when you are running this task force and then Pamela Landy walks in and within
Get me
30
a
seconds
visual.
is like, everything you guys are doing is dumb and bad, and here's how we're going to do it better.
Come on,
Oh,
people.
man.
This is Jason Bourne. I mean, the scene where he gets Pam to go to that one location and Strathairn makes all his men follow her. and
Yeah,
he
Yes.
gets
he's
the
like,
phone
everybody
call.
leave the CIA
And that's what
headquarters.
Bourne
All of
wanted.
us out.
And then he gets the phone call from Jason, and he's like, well, maybe you could come in and we could chat. And he's like, where are you right
Yeah.
now? I'm in my office. I don't think so. Well, why not? Because if you
I was
were, we'd
just
be having this
waiting-
conversation face to
Face to
face.
face.
It would have
It's
been
the
more
best.
badass had someone walked in and Bourne just froze them out the window. That would have been even more awesome.
I just think
I know
he's
that'd be
trying to
unrealistic, but
not
it'd be
kill
funny.
people as much
I
as
know,
possible.
I know,
It's
I know,
a
I know.
goal of his.
I can't help it because
Well,
it is just so
what
funny.
drives me crazy though is he has that conversation with Bourne, and then he calls his second hand, like his right hand man, and he's like, "Go check my office." And I'm like, "What if Bourne had still been in there?
Yeah, what are you
You're
gonna
sending
do?
him in to be killed."
He brings a few guns, but yeah, it is kind of like, yeah, well, what do you think's gonna happen? But that's just how that's what I like about these movies. It just shows you how mindless all these drones of these so-called government people are. It's
I
like,
think they've been taught a certain way they're supposed to act. They have a protocol. And
I
it's
don't
just
question
that
it,
the
even
protocol
though it's
doesn't
tough.
work for Jason Bourne.
Mm-mm.
oh,
Bourne
man.
also pulls his classic trick of calling the cops so that people
Yes.
following him will get
Oh,
waylaid
man.
in this one. And I love when he's with Nikki and he calls the Spanish police and he's like,
It's so
I
good.
hear people, there's Americans, shoots 3 times, and it's just like, okay, come on.
Yeah, I love that so much.
We got to get out of here.
Come on, let's go.
Let's go.
Totally.
Nikki and Pamela are bros.
Yeah, they're not
Dudettes.
antagonists even.
Yep.
I mean, I do kind of want to talk a little bit about Nikki, just because I feel like she goes on a real journey from the first episode or the first movie. In the first movie, I feel like she is so dumb and incompetent. Everything she does
very incompetent.
is just so dumb. And like when Jason at the end is infiltrating their offices and all their alarms start glowing and she's like has no idea what's happening. And then way too late is like, oh, is it Jason Bourne?
The living room alarm is going off. The dining room alarm is going off. This alarm's going off. What's happening? And you're like, what's been happening, Nikki? For the whole movie.
What are we all doing here, Nikki? What do you think is happening? So yeah, in the first movie, you're like, wow, she's very bad at her job. And then you move along into the second one when she's really freaked out, but she mostly handles herself pretty well when Bourne takes her into custody, I think. And then in the third one, all of a sudden, it's like, oh wait, she's in love with him or something. Like wow,
She's
this
seriously in love with him.
real revelation. Who saw this coming when she has
Fair.
to tell him it's difficult with you.
With you.
And you're like, the fuck? I love how Jason, no response at all to any of it.
No,
It's
he's
like,
not
I'm
interested
not
in her
dealing
at
with
all.
this. I don't care to have a conversation about it. I love that they give you the specific contrast of watching her cut and dye her own hair and him in the other room. She's like, I want no part of this. The last time I cut and dyed a woman's hair, I fell in love with her and then she was murdered. So we're not doing that anymore.
She does not do as good of a job on her haircut as Jason does on Marie's haircut.
Well, she hasn't been through the Treadstone program, which involves hairdressing. As
I mean, it probably does for disguises and stuff.
yeah, you're right. He does a great job.
He
does
probably
an
learned how to
unbelievably
apply
great
like a
job.
lace front, like
Yes, I'm
the
sure he
whole
did.
9 yards.
I'm absolutely sure he did. But yeah, I always love the haircut he gives Marie because he starts just hacking it off. You're like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, that's a really nice haircut.
It's really
Great work, Jason.
So yeah, I think I think Noah Vosen might be the overall most incompetent CIA agent we see.
Especially for what a high level he is. He is the deputy director of the CIA and he is dumb as a rock. It's pretty remarkable.
So Vosen?
Vosen?
Vosen. I think he's more incompetent than Cooper.
I don't think Cooper's that incompetent. Cooper is dealing with a tough situation because all of their missions have always gone flawlessly. They really are coming at
Someone had to be the fall guy.
Well, and they have no idea what's happening. Like, we know a lot more than them about what's happening. They think he's dead, and all of a sudden they find out he's not dead, but they don't know anything about the amnesia. And so you're sort of like, this is a lot to deal with, this situation.
True.
Whereas Vosen has so much information.
Jesus
and
Christ, that's
still
Jason Bourne.
Acts like a complete idiot
Yeah.
the whole way through.
God, I love Landy just owning him constantly. It brings me a great amount of joy. And then at the end, when she's like, "You're gonna need to get yourself a good lawyer."
Oh, so sassy.
Get him, Pam. Most competent villain, Albert Finney.
Yeah, and
Totally.
most evil.
Mm-hmm.
And most lovely assassin is sweet little the professor.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
He's the best.
He's the best. What a performance from Clive Owen. So memorable.
Yep.
Second favorite assassin, Carl Urban. But mostly
Yes, but just because he's Carl Urban.
Fair enough.
The other ones don't have, a lot of them are competent. Not a ton of them have that much character,
Yeah.
Fair enough. I dug how Ed Norton joined the cast, and it's just like, hey, he's a U.S. Air Force. He actually trained the other guy, and he actually got away with everything.
I like Ed Norton.
I'll just give credit that Dewey in the final one wasn't a retread of The Fugitive for Tommy Lee Jones. It's like, yeah, no, he's just a crooked
Tommy Lee
director.
Jones can do other things.
I know, but he's done so many movies where he's chasing someone and proving their
Tommy Lee
innocence.
Jones often plays Tommy Lee Jones, to be fair.
But it's interesting how Dewey is technically in charge of all those guys, including that doctor that they reveal. So
Yeah. As soon as you think you've gotten to the top of the corruption, it goes higher, you know?
But he's in charge of all the
Always the
ops,
way.
and he's using social media to frame him, but also bring him out in the open where he knows he'll be. Ugh.
Yep.
The rock goes all the way down.
And he also got to
It
shout
does.
Bourne.
He also got to shout Bourne.
Shoot. Sorry.
Oh, shoot Bourne. Oh, poor Bourne.
Yep.
I wish he didn't have to get shot so much.
I wish he could have continued to live in India with
For
Marie.
him, it was just Tuesday.
The dream.
Yeah. Yeah. That would have been the dream. Just
The
in
poor
India.
guy.
These damn snipers.
I mean, I do feel like at least Kirill wasn't trying to kill her, you know? It
That's
was
true.
an accident.
It was.
But
Denial.
I mean, she probably would have died anyway. He was shooting Jason while
They were
in the
driving at
car
high speed.
together. Yeah, but you know, mistakes were made.
Yeah.
The biggest mistake was not waiting for the body. All the people who think they've killed Jason Bourne and don't check. Like Desh also thinks Jason has blown up and doesn't go over to check his body. And you're like, what are we doing here, people? You can't just assume he's dead.
Oh, but they did.
They always do.
I'm gonna give a shout out to Lark's Free. He tries to kill Aaron Cross and
Mhm.
Marta in the Philippines.
Mhm,
That
mhm.
actor's been in better stuff like Predators in the final season of Jack Ryan, though. But
Oh, nice.
I just applaud how by that point every super assassin can jump from motorcycle to motorcycle like a freaking Matrix agent. It's like
Hell yeah.
Grand Theft Auto, baby. I
Ah,
once talked to a guy who did a lot of voice acting in Bourne Ultimatum. I think his voice is heard during the nightclub scene that we mentioned earlier, and he unfortunately passed away from cancer. But
oh, that's sad. Great nightclub scene, though.
yeah, and he was one of those. He just did a lot of voiceovers for various Russian movies and did a mixture of TV and B movies. But
Yeah. I will say, Carl Urban, I feel like makes a convincing Russian.
As someone who doesn't speak Russian, he sounds great to me.
Sounds good to me. Oh,
I feel like I
clear your
buy that for
throat.
him.
Yeah. You do your bad Arnold Schwarzenegger
You're starting to do
impression.
Schwarzenegger. which
But
is
then
a
you
little bit different.
gotta lean back on it a bit and have it be more like, hey. Yeah. So
Subtle.
yeah, it's Hans Gruber as played by Arnold with a little
He's German.
fluctuation. Yeah.
You've listed everything other than Russian.
Well, how do you do Russian? Is my point.
How do
No
you
one
do
can
Ru-
tell the difference.
It's Arnold Schwarzenegger and Hans Gruber, quite clearly.
Then you gotta clear your throat.
I think he does a good job for a notoriously not Russian person.
Again, sounded perfect to me.
And I'm sure the other Russian guys are just as bad as MAGA, where they're coming up to him, you took our jobs.
Yeah, probably.
Let's hope not. I hope they're not as bad as we are here.
Who knows?
I'm not
Absolutely.
going-
Who
We're not going there anytime
We don't
soon.
need to have a conversation about the Russian attitude about actors taking their jobs. I don't have anything to offer.
Yeah. It doesn't matter, guys. Goodbye. So where can we find Maddie and Kelsey's lovely show on the interwebs? You guys are on Podbean, Spotify.
Yeah, we're pretty much everywhere you can find podcasts. Our podcast is called The Oscars Got It Wrong. And we have an episode out every other Friday at 6 o'clock Eastern, if people care. But yeah, it's everywhere. It's on Spotify and Apple and wherever else you normally listen.
Perfect. What's been the most? I mean, you've talked about some other heated topics. What's been the hardest to like get a ruling on? Where you're just like, I feel like.
Well,
this
the
isn't
fact
for
that we have
me.
no judge is an issue for getting rulings.
No,
We have to just come to an agreement.
I just mean your final say, where you're just like, I
What
feel
do you
like
think
this
are
is good,
our
but
most
it's not.
controversial opinions, Kelsey?
I mean, I feel like I have a lot of controversial
We
opinions.
all
There's a lot
do.
of great, quote unquote, great movies that I don't particularly enjoy. I think, not to give away the twists, but our 1997 Titanic conversation took some twists and turns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was in competition with Speed 2, and it wasn't even on the ballot.
Oh, we
That was
missed
the
out
real
on
problem.
Speed 2.
That was the real problem.
What a shame.
To be fair, that won a Razzie noun for worst on-screen couple, William Dafoe in a boat.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some really competitive years. 75 and 76 were super competitive.
But I mean, mostly we liked all the movies, so that doesn't really feel that controversial.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's some generally well-regarded movies that both Maddie and I don't like. So those,
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, we
I would
struggle
say
with Westerns.
No,
We do struggle
Westerns
with
is interesting
we
because
do struggle with
a
Westerns.
lot of us, the movies follow a Western structure, but like you say, it is the tired, okay, outlaws come into town, rape everybody, and one guy
some of the
stands up.
tropes just
And it's
not
like, stop.
don't feel particularly fresh.
Oh,
To
man.
be fair, I will say probably our biggest twist ending we've ever had was from the 2002 the 2003 Academy Awards for the films of 2002.
Yeah, that's kind of the start of where no one can share the pie, and you're like, oh, good grief! You can't tell me there's only 3 good movies getting everything.
There's a lot of good movies out there.
There's so many of them that I thought should have won art direction or costumes, and it was like, nope, ignored.
We also had a surprising year when we did the 64 awards or the films of 63, where the film we ended up thinking should have won, we weren't even going to watch, except we had a guest on that episode who suggested it. So
Yeah. And then we loved it.
That was a surprise.
Oh, it's true. It's very hard when there's that much hype and so much time has passed. You don't know how much of it was people were in a different headspace.
Yeah,
and it's going to be generic by today's standards.
It's interesting to rewatch stuff that has lived on in the public imagination, right? Things that are very still talked about to this day, and some of them you watch and you're like, well, I guess it's a product of its era. I'm not a huge fan of that. And some of them you watch and you're like, that lives up to all the hype and more. Like, how could that movie possibly be as good as everyone says it is? And yet, some of them are.
It's hard though.
It's a pleasant surprise.
It's hard though when some of them are visionaries, but they treat their actors like shit. So you're just like,
well, yes, we're talking about people being bad. There are many of those.
It's like, Bernardo Bertolucci, you're a genius, but man, you're a piece of shit. Polanski, don't get me started. Great movies, one of my top filmmakers, but man, he's a pig.
Yeah, it's tough.
What would you say are some of the biggest upsets of recent? I mean, we had it with the Golden Globes, where it's like only like The Bear and Succession won everything, and Barry and Better Call Saul.
I wouldn't say that's an upset, I guess, because I feel like those are
that many recent years.
I just mean that they didn't split it. Like they just gave everything to one or the other. It's like,
well, okay. I feel like
those are good.
That's always what happens, though, especially at TV awards. They'll pick a drama that they like and a comedy that they like, and then give them all of the awards. But it's like, it's easy, right? That's the easiest way to give out awards. Right. It's not a surprise.
Split the pie.
That requires a lot of effort.
Well, then don't do the award show.
But if they didn't do the award show, they wouldn't all be able to get together in fancy clothes and celebrate themselves on TV.
And get swag bags worth hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Think of the swag bags. Exactly.
They need those.
They need those. I feel like, we've done this year's Oscars and last year's Oscars, and I didn't feel like they were super controversial.
It's all good. Good.
I mean, yeah, opinions differ on all things, of course.
Obviously.
But no, I think with this year too, like there were only a couple of awards that people even felt were still in contention by the time we got to Oscars night.
Mm-hmm.
And everything kind of went as predicted. Which, that's fine. That's cool. I will say in 2022, All Quiet on the Western Front won more than I was thinking they were going to win. That was surprising.
Big fan of All Quiet on the Western Front.
And I think Poor Things ended up winning more things than I thought this year.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always some surprises.
There are, room on the margins for things to be different, but
no, we haven't done I think the most recent year we've done, other than the last two, is probably 2014.
Yeah, that seems right to me, which is
Yeah.
not that recent, really.
No, it's 10 years ago. We did think the Oscars got it wrong that year. So
I don't even remember that year, so that tells
As
you
a
how
spoiler.
I think it was the Birdman year. That was the Birdman year, right?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Oof.
There was some good stuff. There's always a mixed bag, you know?
Yeah, I think that was the last award show I watched all the way through. It was like,
Yeah.
no.
I think we have found well, we've said they've gotten it wrong a good amount of times, but I do think we often find that the nominees are wronger than the
Well,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wronger than the winner, you mean? Yeah.
You look at 95 and there's a lot of movies getting best actors and you're like, but why is that movie not getting best picture?
Well, in
It's-
95, they only had 5 spots to give.
Yeah.
Tough
It's pretty
stuff.
tough. Tough stuff.
Yeah. It's all studio bids, so what do I know?
You
I'm just
know,
quoting
hard
the
to take
trailers.
it. It's hard to take it any of it too seriously. We're just here to watch the movies and have some fun and talk about them, you know?
Right.
Can't complain.
Yep. And get more opinions.
Yes. We're just accumulating opinions.
It's a lot of fun.
You have any guests that are upcoming?
Any what that are upcoming?
Any more guests that are coming on this show?
Oh.
There's-
No.
No?
Nobody on the schedule.
No.
What can we tease that's upcoming?
I don't
We're
know.
working on 2016 right now, which had a pretty controversial Oscars ceremony at the very
Yeah.
least.
Oh,
That's
God.
true. That's the I mean, that probably won't be relevant by the time this comes out. Can we talk about our 80s and 90s
Oh yeah,
projects?
let's talk about that. That's
Sure.
gonna be fun.
So as we said, we like to add in genre pictures as we are going through the years that maybe weren't honored. And we were looking at the nominees across like the 1980s, and there's so many good like comedies, action movies, sci-fi movies in the 80s, none of which get
Yeah.
nominated.
Mhm.
And so we've decided that for both the 80s and the 90s, we are going to do a companion fun episode.
Nice.
So
If there were
instead of
such a
just-
thing as the fun Oscars.
Yes, instead of just adding in a couple films, we're going to watch like a suite of fun films from a given year, and then bring our winners from that episode into our actual Oscars episode. Because I think for some of the years, there's like, we have to figure out how we're going to do this because we haven't quite figured it out. But for some of the years, we walk through what came out that year, and there's like 15 just great,
Classics.
like classic action, sci-fi, what have you films that are so fun, would never get play at the Oscars, but like
True.
we want to talk about them.
Yeah.
We did what was it? 89, and I love the movie Roadhouse, if I'm remembering that was the year.
Nice.
And I was like, I don't really think Roadhouse should be nominated.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about Roadhouse.
We need an
I
excuse
love
to talk about
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse.
Best stunt coordination. Oh wait, that's the Emmys. Shit.
They need to get a stunt award at the Oscars.
I
But
feel like they were
last-
teasing us this year
they
by
used
talking about
to.
the stunts and then not announcing a
The
new
last
category.
one, the last one was like that they ever had was like Ben-Hur era. So yeah. Oh,
They've got to bring them back.
I agree.
People have been demanding it for decades.
Stunts would
we
be so
need-
good.
we need to split up the makeup. It's like what's good regular makeup and then what's good effects makeup or puppeteering.
That's tough.
But you know,
give that Jim Henson and Rick Baker company some love.
we want to talk Die Hard and Lethal Weapon and Speed and
Woo.
Ghostbusters and
Yeah.
like, you know, all of the things. And it would have been hard to integrate that into.
Fun fact, I'll invite you for our Valverde saga ranking.
Your Valverde saga ranking?
That's the fictional country in Die Hard 2 and Commando
Ah,
and Predator.
okay. Fair enough.
So they're all in that cinematic
Wait, it's a
universe.
fictional country in Die Hard 2 and Predator
And Commando.
and Commando?
That's
And-
fascinating.
And the replicant company in Blade Runner is the same as the Alien movies, according to Ridley Scott. And
That makes sense.
there's been so many other movies and shows that have heavily implied that they're in the same universe, like Battlestar
We watched
Galactica.
Predator and Commando in pretty short succession. I don't think I,
I didn't
realized
put
they
that
took
together.
Yeah,
Me neither.
Steven DeSouza, who wrote Die Hard and Commando, confirmed it. But yeah, it's one of those, like, they built on it in comics since then, and Terminator and RoboCop did crossovers with AVP. So there you go. It's
All
some
right,
bugs.
that's fun.
But you'll love this.
in our
You'll
fun
love this.
episode for that year.
The Pacific
I don't know.
Transportation Company in
Uh-huh.
Die Hard 1 and 3 is the same as the Speed movies. Two Fox productions.
Oh.
So
That's fun.
I'll let you know.
All right. Look at all these extended universes of action movies.
Yeah. D'Souza even
Love it.
said on a recent episode of Road Commentaries, like, I created the first cinematic universe before even saying elsewhere.
That's
very
fun.
nice.
Yep.
That's
All
great.
right. Good to know.
Yep.
It is funny because we did watch Predator and Commando together for something,
Perfect.
and that went completely over our heads.
No, I did not catch that those were both in Valverde.
All good.
I like it a lot.
Fun stuff. Okay, so looking forward to your next few episodes. You guys got good camaraderie, and again, it's just cool to just kind of have people remind each other. And I like how you jump around. It's not, in chronological order all the time. You kind of, let's go back to the 50s, then let's come back to.
Oh yeah, we
More
do it
recent.
in random order. We use a random number
we
generator to
fill
decide
in?
the order of the podcasts.
Yes. Which creates interesting synchronicities and also its own set of challenges as we go back and forth and
Perfect.
aren't necessarily seeing things how they developed.
Yeah, it's hard to develop a sense of like how Hollywood changed over time from this because we're really getting a piecemeal approach, but
Eventually
at
we'll
the
put it all
end,
together.
Put it all together, exactly.
Put it all together. And I'll welcome you to one of the mock award shows we do annually in the future too. So.
That'd be great. Well, thank you so
Thanks.
much for having us. This was a lot
Anytime.
of fun.
It was a pleasure. We love to talk about
Dynamite.
Bourne anytime.
Follow us on the web on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The podcast is available on Podbean, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor, Apple, and anywhere else podcasts are available. Feel free to review our show and leave comments on any of those sites. Thanks a million for listening.
It's a jacked up review show.